All right, guys, so there's a UN summit or whatever, but the presidents are there at the UN having some gathering and discussing issues and stuff. But I was listening to the USA President Donald Trump, and he mentioned something that I find interesting that I think as South Africans we can identify with. He spoke of open borders and illegal immigration, right? So according to him, this is what he said: under the government of Joe Biden, right, apparently Joe Biden was advocated for open border policy, and that's why but let's be honest, he's right on this one, because people were even laughing at the USA like last year or under the administration of Joe Biden, because they were saying that just even buying eggs is expensive, cost of living is expensive in the United States of America, and things like that. So things were tough for them because they were having a lot of illegal people flocking into the country, and they couldn't manage that, to be honest with you, right? And I guess that's why the people of the United States of America decided to vote for Donald J. Trump to be the 47th president. Why? Because during his campaign, he was talking about how he's going to improve all of that, and he will make changes in terms of immigrations, and he will make changes, he spoke of the economy, how he will do well with the economy, and that's why they voted for him and did not vote for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was focused on other things that the people were not interested in. So I'm saying Donald Trump was able to read the room and be like, this is what our country needs at the moment, and the people voted for him, black, white, Mexican, etc. Right? So as South Africans, this thing of open border if open border policy affected a whole United States of America, which is the largest, they have the largest economy in the world, guys, and they were affected by open border policy. What about South Africa? Because I hear some people say we need to document all illegal foreigners and stuff like that. It can be. The question is, how many people can we take in South Africa? Do we need foreigners in South Africa? Yes, but how many of them can we take? We're not gonna take everybody, guys. It's not gonna happen. We will end up like the United States of America. Our country will run down this country. So so we have to draw lessons from some of the nations, and USA is a very good nation to draw a lesson from. It's very huge, right? It's a huge economy. So if they struggled, if they had issues with illegal immigration, just look at your small South Africa and be like, oh my gosh, what will probably happen in South Africa? So it's not a matter of xenophobia or what. No, every country has to be responsible for their people. That's the truth. So I definitely agree with his sentiments when he says, he even told the president there by UN when he was making his speech, he said, some of you are going to run down your countries. It's going to be difficult. He's speaking from experience because it happened in the USA. So we have to be careful in South Africa. We love everybody, black, white, colored. We love our fellow Africans, but we have to be careful because we cannot take it. There's a number of people, there's a number of foreigners that we can take into South Africa, but we cannot take in everybody, guys. All right, and I want the continent to understand that, and I want the continent to hold their own leaders in their respective countries responsible. Recently I spoke about Uganda, and there's a guy who came and made a comment and said, yeah, we want Museveni as president, as much as he's 81 years and he's been a president for 37 years, but they still want him in government. And then the same people want to run from the countries and come into South Africa. It cannot be. Let's all clean our homes, guys. Let's all get our homes intact, our different countries. Let's all work and strive that our countries become a better place, and stop blaming South Africa for everything.
Why are some South Africans turning against other Africans today? The answer lies in the psychology of apartheid. Apartheid wasn't just about law or politics. It was a system designed to teach separation, who belongs and who doesn't. That way of thinking doesn't disappear overnight. It lingers in communities, in attitudes, even in the way people see themselves. Psychologists call this othering. When you grow up inside a divided society, you often carry that mindset forward, even without realizing it. Now, today's reality in South Africa: unemployment is high, housing is unequal, and poverty is widespread. When resources feel scarce, psychology shifts into survival mode. People begin to compete with each other, and migrants, often from other African countries, become easy targets for frustration. But the real issue isn't foreigners at all. It's the trauma apartheid left behind. Generations lived under fear and oppression, and trauma doesn't vanish when the laws change. It gets carried forward, passed down, projected onto others. Instead of challenging the systems that created inequality, anger gets redirected sideways. So when we see xenophobia in South Africa today, it isn't just about jobs or borders. It's about history still echoing. It's about a legacy of fear, separation, and unhealed wounds. Till that deeper work is done, the cycle risks repeating itself. This is the Africa you're not shown, but I'm here to show you.
The population in South Africa is 90% black, but black people in South Africa only own 4% of privately owned land in the entire country. But somehow Trump is convinced that these 59 white South African refugees deserve to be housed and fed on the taxpayer dollar in the United States because they were being discriminated against in their home country. It makes me so fucking sick to see that in the same week that a 16-year-old girl had her face slammed into the concrete by ICE because she was brought here as a minor into the United States by her parents, that our taxpayer dollars are simultaneously being spent on an expedited refugee process for white people in South Africa, where they only make up 10% of the population, but they own 96% of the fucking land. Are you kidding me? And their justification is that they believe that white people are being genocided in South Africa. So all of a sudden they have a problem with genocide. Meanwhile, the United States is literally funding a genocide in the West Bank. And for the record, that's not even happening in South Africa. It's been disproven and debunked multiple times. And it's just Elon Musk spreading right-wing bullshit, white supremacist bullshit, as usual. That's all this is. It's just white supremacist bullshit all over again. I'm so tired.
So what happens in countries when white people are in the minority? Let's do a quick case study on how it's going for South Africa. So you'd never know it because it's crickets from the Western media, but each one of these crosses, this is a 3-minute video by the way, stands for one of the over 70,000 white South Africans that has been unalived since apartheid ended. South Africa, post-apartheid, has one of the highest unaliving rates in the entire world. These attacks are quite obviously racially motivated and targeted, yet the US still won't classify this as the obvious genocide it is. Because they will not publicly classify it as this, white South Africans cannot seek asylum in the US, which is ridiculous. Now, my point of this isn't really to justify apartheid. I don't think that was a great system by any means. My point is more to the fact that apartheid never really ended. The biggest thing that changed is just the people doing the apartheid, but it never ended. As this comment says, under apartheid, there were 48 race-based laws. And today, there's 116 race-based laws. So it's like a double reverse apartheid. And as of Thursday, the racist ANC has voted that they can actually steal anyone's land they want without compensation and redistribute it based on equity. And if white South Africans have a problem with this, they can take it up with the same court system that ruled that calling to unalive them was not hate speech. But saying the things I'm saying is. And before you start to type that paragraph about how you don't care because it's Africa, it's for Africans, even though the law is targeted at the white South African farmers, this screws over black South Africans just as badly. And if this bill passes, it will lead to economic collapse in South Africa. That is about a 99% chance of happening. It will also destroy any investment into South Africa because no one's willing to invest in a place where there isn't secure private property rights. And want to know how I know for a fact it will fail? This has already happened in Zimbabwe, formerly known as Rhodesia. Back in 1960, Rhodesia had the highest housing and education standard for both black and white Africans on the entire continent. Also worth noting that Rhodesia never had an apartheid system. They had a democracy voting system similar to America. Anyone was able to vote as long as they held a certain amount of property, which is honestly what a constitutional republic is. And what America would go back to if we were smart and actually wanted to follow what our constitution and charter intended. Rhodesia was also the breadbasket, which means they were one of the biggest food producers for the entire continent. So not only did it lead to starvation of its own citizens, it affected the entire continent of Africa. Food exports fell by 45% because of this, and unemployment went up by 80%. It helped no one. But yeah, Zimbabwe fell to the same reasons America is falling today. Billionaire oligarchs came in and started up identity politics and race baiting in order to do a communist overthrow. And just like every single time this has been done, which is quite a few times in the past 2 centuries, the results were absolutely disastrous. Quick little timeline for y'all. 2014, Mugabe says whites can't own land in Zimbabwe. 2015, Mugabe is asking back the white farmers he chased away. 2016, Zimbabwe pleads for $1.5 billion in food aid to prevent mass starvation. 2017, Zimbabwe begs white farmers to return as country plunges into famine. 2018, Zimbabwe doomed without whites, says outgoing ZANU. 2019, Zimbabwe to start paying white farmers compensation to return. The exact same thing will happen to South Africa if they get their way and this bill passes. Also, white South Africans are not living on stolen land. They paid for this land and developed it over generations. This is a fact, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. No black tribe lived on the land prior to them developing. This whole land issue is purely based on racism, jealousy, and resentment. The apartheid regime eventually gave up power because they were told it would be better for everyone. They were outnumbered and had a bunch of international pressure to do so. So they willingly gave it up. And come to think of it, if the Afrikaners were on that land first and they built quite literally everything on it, why shouldn't they have been able to run the government how they wanted to? We need to be able to take an objective look at these things. So if you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but look up the data for yourself. Under the apartheid regime, South Africa had a strong economy and low crime rates. The prior government also invested into roads, infrastructure, and bridges that connected people and helped facilitate trade. They invested in schools and universities because they understood the value in having an educated, employable population. They built healthcare and hospitals. Just another thing that has since deteriorated. It seems to me like they actually at least somewhat cared about making a better future for all South Africans. Don't get me wrong, none of this is to say that there weren't or aren't legitimate criticisms that people were understandably upset about and led to them wanting the regime to end. But again, by every measurable statistic, they had a far better quality of living than they do now. Under the racist ANC, they have high unemployment, high crime rates, failing infrastructure, and a failing power grid. And if that doesn't sound better to you than what they had prior, it's because it isn't. The ANC to this day still blames white monopoly control and the effects of apartheid, which ended over 25 years ago. And they do this to distract from their own very obvious ineptitude and corruption, which has driven away a majority of their investors. So why should Westerners care about this? Well, the exact same thing is happening to us today. Because this is exactly what happens every single time you put incompetent people in charge and judge policies and programs by their good intentions rather than their results. These same globalists are funding and pushing it. These egalitarians still remain in control of the West today because of their refusal to acknowledge reality and also think what the long-term effects of the policies they're pushing are. They remain on track to achieve their goal of turning us all into a global Zimbabwe. They seek to destroy all natural order and hierarchy because it's a threat to their power. Because the reality is, equality has never and will never exist. And it likely wouldn't be a good thing even if it could. Unless you desire a race to the bottom where everybody globally will suffer and starve as a result. And this, my friends, is where the obsession with equity and equality quite literally always leads. Famine, economic collapse, tyranny, and miserable living conditions for all. But hey, at least they're equally miserable. This is getting long, and I know people don't really have an attention span, so I'm gonna make a part 2.
If you think this country belongs to you because you've got an ID, and because you put a cross on a piece of paper, and you happen to earn crumbs, every month you collect 370 grant, and your child collects 500 and whatever it is today, child grant, and your child gets taught to be a servant in a free school, and you get to be injected with all types of pharmaceutical bullshit in a free clinic. You think that should make you a patriot and fight against foreigners and fight for this country and bleed? Or you have a nice job. You're that slave with the gold chains. You're like, nah, I know we're slaves, but I get to sleep in the house, and I know your chains are made of copper. Nigga, I got gold chains, homie. My chains are made of gold. Still a chain, homie. You're swimming in debt. You're one salary away from your house being repossessed. One salary away from your car being repossessed. One salary away from your children being kicked out of their private school. Your medical aid being cancelled. Your fancy little life being taken away from you. You are a slave to the same system. Han Rupert doesn't care about medical aid. He owns Mediclinic. Adrian Gore doesn't care about medical aid. He owns Discovery. These guys can go anywhere they want and do whatever they want. These are the people that actually are the real players in this country. The rest of us are just, like I said, tenants and residents in a complex that is not even our own. That's very important for as many people as possible to understand, so that you can start moving in the right direction, and more importantly, so that you can have peace. So many people get worked up listening to politicians argue and bicker, and we get on social media and we dispute and debate and argue with each other and we swear at each other, and there's racism. At the end of the day, this country does not belong to us. It belongs to big business. And the government, it's just a governance system. It's security guards on behalf of big business. And their other job as security guards is to run a little charity foundation on the side, an orphanage, what we call social welfare, for the poorest majority. Here's a free grant. Here's free schooling. Here's free healthcare. Here's a free little house, so that you don't make too much noise. Because it's cheaper to give you this than to give you a decent job. It's cheaper to give you this than to give you access to real land and real skills. It's cheaper to give you this as an insurance for the rich than for you to actually be a real participant in the economy. I wish more and more of us could take on the mindset of amazamazama, take on the mindset of small-scale farmers, take on the mindset of small-scale artisans that build things, that can fix things, that can put up a little house. That's fundamentally important. South Africa does not belong to the people. It belongs to big business. Paying you all the black pen.
Things about South Africa that would send Americans into a coma. Starting off strong, we have this thing called load shedding, which means our government sometimes shuts our power off. It can be 3 hours, it can be 8 hours, who knows? It's a gamble, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. If you call a pizza place and you call the police at the same exact time, the pizza will arrive before the cops. One time, me and my family members were driving home really late, and it was really, really dark. There were no lights thanks to load shedding, and we were getting chased by a taxi with people with pew-pews, and we called the cops, and the cops said, "Sorry, just drive to the nearest police station." Using my favorite palette from Makeup by Mario, I need a new one. In South Africa, we don't have summer vacation. Our summer vacation is in December, and it's only 1 month as opposed to America's like 3 months. I love Better Than Sex mascara, but I'm all out. Thankfully, I still have good old reliable Essence Lash Princess. Mascara really does make all the difference. South Africa doesn't have Chick-fil-A, Crumble, Chipotle, none of that. The best you're gonna get is McDonald's or KFC. Do not ask anybody here about no pounds, miles. We work in kilometers and centimeters. That's it. Let me know which one of these shocked you the most.
This is crazy. South Africa is set to become the first country in the world to build a bulletproof playground. This is an illustration of what it would look like as part of a proposal made by a local NGO called Gun Free SA. The plan is to build the first bulletproof park in Mitchells Plain, Cape Town, in response to the area's alarming gang violence. As it stands, this is entirely a privately funded initiative, and it's set to be presented to the community for approval. The playground will be surrounded by large bulletproof panels, including secure entrances and even panic buttons. The same organization, Gun Free SA, have also explored the idea of bulletproof vests for children. The director described the bulletproof park as an outrageous solution to an outrageous problem. Do you think this is a good idea? Let me know.
This is milk being poured out of a truck in South Africa, and what's happening there is sending shockwaves across the world. I think it's about time that you learn what's happening there, because it could trickle down to your country. Here's a quick summary. This is South Africa, Africa's second largest economy. The economic inequality in the country has been growing at a staggering rate, especially since the beginning of the restriction. Gen Z and millennial South Africans have a 74% unemployment rate. With an already growing frustration in the country, the catalyst to this whole situation was the arrest of ex-President Jacob Zuma. Just to give you a bit of a background, Mr. Zuma was at the forefront of freeing South Africa from the apartheid alongside Nelson Mandela. He Mr. Zuma faced allegations of corruption, he exercised his right to stay silent, and he was arrested for contempt of court, and he was sentenced to 15 months. After Zuma's sentencing without a jury trial, his supporters started protesting. They started the Free Zuma movement. Remember, Mr. Zuma's arrest was just a catalyst in a country where most people under 25 have nothing left and nothing to lose. The protest turned into lawlessness and chaos, with businesses burned and looted. Businesses ransacked with street full of chaos in 2 of South Africa's provinces. And I think most of you have been seeing these images all over your feed with malls completely destroyed. With people terrified of the state of the country, people started withdrawing large amounts of cash to buy gold, silver, or crypto. The country is low on cash right now and most ATM machines are empty. With people hungry, people started looting grocery stores because they were closed and they had no money. People are lining up for gas and petrol trucks are being escorted by armed guards.
Politicians, where are you now? Quiet now, huh? Nothing to say now, huh? You did this. Because if you had built a country that was inclusive with an economy that was growing, we could have survived this shit. First of all, people, this is orchestrated. It's logical, people. The first day, the protest grew. The second day, it got worse. The day after, it got worse, and it keeps on escalating, and they did absolutely nothing to act until now, because this is orchestrated. They are creating chaos in our country to implement a new system afterwards. I love my country, black and white, Indian and colored. I love you all. Let us work together.
This sent shockwaves all across the world with people resonating with how South Africans are frustrated with their government and their economic conditions. People are lining up for ammunition and guns. Communities of every race is coming together to self-patrol. People are praying in malls and streets. Remember, South Africa is a Commonwealth country just like Canada and Australia. Don't think this can't happen in your backyard.
If you could change anything about South Africa, what would it be?
Oh man, it's such a hard question. It would have to be our belief that for some of us to do better, others must do worse. This shared psychology, there's just such a great dispersion of opportunities that it wasn't conceivable that we could all operate in the same universe of opportunities and shared prosperity. But for those of us, by God's grace, who've had the privilege of seeing other parts of the world, you know that you can build society where gravity vortexes towards the center, and in the center is where there's shared prosperity. There'll be outliers for sure, but that we can actually, all of us can do well. None of us needs to suffer for any other amongst us to do better. We can all do well.
So many things that we think aren't illegal actually are. This week we were talking about collecting sand from the beach. So if you as a parent want to create a sand pit for your toddlers to play in at home, you would think, let me just waddle on over to a public beach and collect a whole bunch of sand from there. No, you can't do that. You will be arrested. You can buy sand from the shop. That's what you need to do. You cannot own a tortoise as a pet. You need a special permit to be able to own a tortoise. So if you're driving along and you see a cute little tortoise on the road and you're like, oh, let me take it home. No, that is illegal. You will be fined. So the reason why owning a tortoise as a pet is illegal is that it needs a specific environment in order to live and thrive. So you moving it to a foreign place like your home is not good for the tortoise. Something else that is illegal that I think a lot more of us citizens should make noise about is urinating in public places. A lot more men need to be in jail, prison. Okay, urinating in public is illegal. So I feel we need to be making a lot more calls because men are pissing in every corner of the country. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. And finally, it is also technically illegal to jaywalk in this country. But of course, at this point, South Africans have made a collective decision like eat holes. We will not comply.